It's New Year's Eve in the Hotel Mon Signor, and Ted the bellhop has to deal with a series of bizarre guests. Special guest Jason Torres joins us to chat about a missed opportunity with Madonna, hotels with medicine cabinets, and needles with hepatitis C. Then we find out if 4 rooms stands the test of time.
Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says gladiator with the glutton. Alan says as a father, blah blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last episode of 2024. It's the Test of Time podcast. I'm James Brief, and joining me as always is Alan Noah. How are you, Al?
I am doing very well, and we have a special guest joining us, coming back on the show. It's Jason Torres. Welcome back, Jason.
Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm really glad to have you back on the show. You texted me, you asked to come back on, and you really wanted to come back on this episode, our New Year's Eve episode. Was it just a New Year's resolution that you made back in January, and you were like, oh shit, I got to get on this?
Yeah, that and going to the gym. But I wanted something to make sense. I feel like every time I've come on, it was a good reason. You know, obviously the first time was the first time. The second time, I picked a different movie because you didn't like the first one. And then the third time, it was a movie that I'd never seen before. And I thought that'd be a fun wrinkle. And then this time, I just looked at the calendar and thought something thematic, either in the New Year's Eve or New Year's space, or maybe an older movie that took place in the future world of 2025 or something like that.
To remind our listeners, we've talked about 3 really interesting films in the past with you. We talked about a movie called The Last Dragon, True Romance, and then Enemy of the State. This is a film I know that Alan and I had never seen before, 4 Rooms, the movie we're going to discuss today. So I was wondering what your history with this film was.
I think this came out after Pulp Fiction, so Tarantino was a big star already, and I remember very vividly that the trailer was awesome. I don't know if you've seen it. Well, I know you don't really like trailers, but the trailer was really good, and I just never got around to seeing it. I did see one part of it. I can't remember where or why, but that the last bit I've seen. But today was the first time I've watched the entire movie from beginning to end.
Yeah, and when you said that you wanted to do a New Year's Eve movie, I think the year we did 200 Cigarettes, I remember looking it up. What are New Year's Eve movies? And there's not a ton, but it was 200 Cigarettes and 4 Rooms. And I kind of forgot about it. I made a mental note at the time, lost that mental note. And then when you said, how about 4 Rooms? I was like, yeah, sure. And there is a connection to the second movie you joined us on, True Romance, because that movie was written by Quentin Tarantino, not directed. But this movie has 4 different segments with 4 different directors. And the last one is written and directed by Tarantino and stars him as well. But before we get into 4 Rooms, Jason, you were working on a podcast yourself, right? Why don't you tell our listeners about that?
I write and produce on a show called Black Lit, and it's BLKLIT. You can find it wherever you find podcasts, and it's pretty cool. It's a newer show. I joined it recently. You know, if you're interested in learning more about Octavia Butler or Langston Hughes and their work, it's a fun narrative podcast with interviews with academics, and it's really cool. We're working on some other interesting ways to tackle those topics, and I was talking to Alan about it earlier, like pivoting into different things, since like the TV industry is in flux with all like the mergers and layoffs. So I've been doing a lot of like more stand-up, some live shows. My show that I've talked about on here a bunch of times, Hypothetical. I did that for the Baltimore Comedy Festival, and I'm turning that into a podcast. That's going to be my
Nice.
podcast, and I'm going to be releasing that at the end of January. Yeah, so just plugging along, still writing, producing, and excited to be in the podcast space with you guys.
Nice. Well, if you're ever looking for a guest on Hypothetical, please hit me up.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
I don't think I would be a very good guest on Blacklit. As a guy who is both white and not a reader, I would not be able to contribute very much there. But let's get into Four Rooms. This movie combines four short stories, all taking place on New Year's Eve at the fictional Hotel Mon Signor. The common element in each story is Ted the bellhop. First, there's a coven of witches in the honeymoon suite who are trying to resurrect their goddess, but they're missing one key ingredient, sperm. One of the witches seduces Ted, and the coven is able to complete their ritual. Next, Ted happens upon the wrong room, finding a woman held at gunpoint by her husband. But it's just a sexual game that the couple plays from time to time. Then, Ted is paid by a wealthy couple to watch their children, but it's not an easy babysitting job. The kids keep calling him and making annoying demands. Then they find a dead woman in their mattress, and when Ted returns to the room, a fire starts just as the parents return. Finally, Ted is beckoned to the penthouse, where a famous movie director invites Ted to be the referee in a twisted game. If one man is able to ignite his lighter 10 times in a row, he wins the director's car. If he loses, Ted has to chop off his pinky. It's just one night of four adventures in four rooms. So, James, when this movie came out in 1995, how did it do at the box office? Not so great, right?
You're right. This film did not do very well at the box office. I mean, it only had a $4 million budget, which you could see. I mean, it's a kind of film that has four sets, maybe five. They probably borrowed, for those little interlude scenes. But the film came out on December 22nd, 1995, a week later wide. And it opened at number 21 and number 18 with $427 and $1.2 million, respectively. It only took in $4.5 million domestically. So it wasn't a major flop. It's not like they spent $20 million on this, but, it cost $4 million. It took in $4 million. I do remember specifically seeing this commercial. So they definitely had a marketing budget on this. So I don't know if you paid to watch this film, Al, or either of you paid to watch it from a rental service or something. Maybe it made another couple cents.
No, I watched it on Hoopla. It was free.
I know I watched it on Amazon. I rented it for I think $2.99.
Oh, you guys got to get on Hoopla.
Wait, what is that? An app?
Yeah, it's a free streaming service. All you need is a library card. If you have a library card, you can get on there. And it's only random, obscure movies. Mm-hmm. But if you have a podcast where you talk about random, obscure movies from time to time, it does come in handy. But I think the best way to talk about this movie is kind of in order, doing each story at a time. So the first chapter, I guess, is called The Honeymoon Suite, The Missing Ingredient. This one was written and directed by Allison Anders. I don't know who she is. Like, I am not familiar with her. I clicked on her IMDb page and didn't recognize anything. Jason, do you know this director?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So it's about a coven, and they are doing this ritual. First off, Madonna is the leader of the coven, and it's kind of funny because the titular missing ingredient is sperm, and the witch who was supposed to get the sperm didn't because she got so into the blowjob that she swallowed. And this character is not played by Madonna, but isn't that kind of like the conversation at the beginning of Reservoir Dogs, written by Tarantino, starring Tim Roth, where they're talking about Madonna giving lots of blowjobs? I don't know if Madonna encountered Quentin Tarantino on set because he didn't direct this segment, but you could imagine there maybe being a friendly conversation or an awkward conversation about that, depending.
Or at the very least, it's a huge missed opportunity, right? Because it would have been a funny piece of trivia had they done that, and you could point back to Reservoir Dogs and Tarantino and Madonna. You could have had a lot of fun with that, even if it was just a wink to a super fan.
Yeah.
But it's a perfect way to start a movie that would later be filled with missed opportunities.
That is a very, very good way of describing it. The one witch, played by Ione Skye, was supposed to bring the sperm, and, she didn't. They also order a lot of room service for weird things like liver and salt and stuff. Did I miss it? Do they use that stuff in the ritual, or is it all just the stuff that they brought, like the year's worth of tears and the sweat from the thighs? Because if they needed that stuff for the ritual, I would think plan ahead, go to a butcher, like pick up the liver
Mhm.
that you need. Don't just hope that the hotel room service would have it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of ways to think about it because one, there was already kind of a brew there when they added the other things. So presumably there was something that was making that blue.
Eye of Newt, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. My headcanon is that liver can be a little bit old and you can prepare for that, whereas sperm, you probably need it somewhat fresh. I felt like that line when she was saying, I tried to get the sperm, but I swallowed it. Maybe a movie theater laughed, but it wasn't as funny as it wanted to be.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, even the fact that they needed sperm, and then, well, first we skipped that there was some sort of pep talk before it all started, right? With Ted
Yeah.
gets a pep talk from whoever, and part of it is keep it in your pants. And
Yeah.
then immediately he's faced with a situation that's like sexual, which immediately I was like, oh, I guess he's gonna get a bunch of advice and it's gonna play out throughout all the rooms, Like, so I'm kind of bracing for that, but it doesn't happen. And then I just figured they need sperm. They're gonna seduce this guy to have like an off-camera sex scene. It's a little bit lazy. I think it would have been funnier if like they needed sweat and then like they create a situation where they scare the shit out of him, or I don't know, it could have been something more playful. It was a little bit like on the nose. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. It's so straightforward that it's frustratingly straightforward. These witches are going to do a ritual and they need sperm. One of them has sex with the bellhop. They have the sperm and then they do the ritual. They bring this woman, Diana, back to life and then it ends.
Yeah, we don't see her again.
Yeah, I was totally expecting that. I'm like, oh, this Diana person, we're gonna see her again later in the movie. This is gonna
Yeah.
be important later, and nope. That is the beginning, middle, and end. This story is lame. Like it's just
Yeah,
lame. It's not sexy. It could be. I mean, there's beautiful women dancing around topless. Sure, I like
sure.
that. No complaints. But it's so bizarre. I recently watched Agatha All Along with my daughter. We loved it. I love a good story about witches and covens doing cool shit. But this isn't cool shit. This is just, oh, we need sperm, so we have sex with this guy. The end.
There's a part where Ted the busboy, I don't remember, he gets knocked out or something, but he's literally having the cartoon little stars or birds dancing around his head, like when you're knocked out in a Bugs Bunny
Yeah.
cartoon.
It's the love spell.
Yeah, the love spell. If you're gonna go in this sci-fi or not sci-fi fantasy element, nothing else in the movie goes there. So, like you said, there was going to be a callback to this woman later. There's no callback to even this genre breaking. And this is the first film of the short film. So I thought this was going to be an entirely almost like a science fiction hotel. And every room is going to be a different wacky Twilight Zone episode.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I just wish that the witches themselves, actually, you have like 5 women or so, and I wish they just had a little personality. Like they could have all brought the tears and then they brought the other ingredients. And she goes, yep, I brought the sperm. I got it. Okay, where is it? Yeah, I have it. I swallowed it. I brought it here. You idiot. Like she doesn't know. You could have had some reason. Now they got to get it out. These witches were all kind of interchangeable. They could have been a leader and a dumb one and an evil one. And oh, yeah, seduce him. Who cares? And it wasn't terrible. But for me, this wasn't the best start of the film.
Yeah, I agree. It was a weird way to start, and it was like loaded with potential where it's like
Yeah.
it let you down pretty quickly. Like immediately you have Madonna in the lobby, she's checking in. First you're like, oh cool, Madonna. And then there's a little bit of a dynamic with the witch that she was with where it's like she goes, you're not my mom. And she goes, yes, I am. I'm like, that's kind of interesting. What's happening here? And then immediately it's just like, I don't know. They didn't have any personality. Tim Roth was so annoying.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was doing, but like his character was so bizarre.
Well, like when he first walks in and he sees Ione Sky and she's upset and she's half naked and he takes off his jacket. And at first I was like, oh God, is he just going right for sex because she's half naked? And no, he puts the jacket on her. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. You know, like
Yeah.
he's covering her up. He's being nice. I think Madonna says, we'll give you $50 if you can make her smile. And then he starts doing like funny voices. Like he's trying to literally make her smile. And then she has to say, no, that's not what they meant. So at first he's at least a nice guy. I appreciate that he's just trying to be a good bellhop and do what is asked of him. And yeah, he'll take that $50 tip if he can get it. Like you said, the old bellhop who gives him the advice to keep it in his pants, he doesn't just whip it out of his pants. She has to do this enchanting spell on him with the cheesy cartoon sound effects and you know, hearts and laser eyes, whatever, just to make him have sex with her. So I don't think he's interesting in this part of the movie, but he's not a bad guy either.
For his first day of work, it would have been really easy to do a thing where he needs X amount of money. That's why
Yeah.
he can't quit. Because there were so many reasons for him to just be like, I'm out of here. It's his first day. It's like, I'm quitting. It should have been like a ticker on the screen, like counting up, like he
Yeah.
needs $1,500 or he's, gonna get evicted or something.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking the same thing. He keeps taking these tips. If we knew that he desperately needed the money for something, that would help. All right, so let's move on to the second segment, Room 404, The Wrong Man. This one is written and directed by Alexandre Rockwell. Also, don't know him, not familiar with his work. The segment stars Jennifer Beals, who we saw in Flashdance, and was married to Alexandre Rockwell. They later divorced, but at the time they were married. And it stars David Proval. Jason, when you see this guy who plays Siegfried in this part of the movie, what do you think of? What role?
Oh man, am I about to fail a quiz?
No, not a quiz, not a quiz.
For me, it's Richie Aprile from The Sopranos.
Yeah.
That was the answer I was getting at, that everybody in the world would say Richie Aprile from The Sopranos. I think of Richie Aprile second. First, I think of him in UHF, where he was just one of the hired goons who threatened Stanley Spadowski. Nobody else on the planet would make that connection, except maybe your sister Joanna. But I'll show my ignorance here. Is this cuckolding? Is that what this is that we see in this segment, where like the husband wants to be humiliated by the thought of his wife having sex with another man?
A cuckold, I think, is the guy who watches his mate have sex with another person. It's probably in the realm of cuckold fantasies, but or maybe a humiliation kink or something like that.
But either way, this was like way before these things were even
Right,
a little
labeled.
bit mainstream. So I couldn't understand what was going on for a while. I didn't know what was happening, I'll be honest. This was probably my least favorite of the four.
You got David Proval, who is a well-cast guy for a scary guy with a gun. I think he plays this guy very well. Jennifer Beals is beautiful, so she plays this beautiful damsel in distress tied up. I thought the premise was very intriguing. I think I have to admit I'm a little disappointed it turned out to be a sex game in the end. I kind of wanted it to be more of a hostage situation, that maybe the busboy saves the day in the end through some wacky, he trips and, is somehow he saves the day. That's what I thought it was going to be. He unties her at one point, and then she does the typical hostage thing where she's like, quick, tie me back up before he comes back or he'll know that you untied me. But this is all part of the sexual game. I'm just a little disappointed. I wish it was something a little bit juicier. I found it a little bit more intriguing than the first film.
I would probably agree with you, James. I think that the first two are both pretty bad. Maybe this one's a little bit more interesting. But yeah, once it turns out to just be the sex game, I was like, oh, okay. When he goes into the bathroom looking for the nitro drug that's going to resuscitate him after he has a heart attack, there's a lot of blood in the bathroom, and that's never explained, which is, maybe okay. But then I was wondering if that was maybe connected to the dead body in the third segment, which maybe it is. There's no clear indication of that. Also, he's looking for the drugs in the medicine cabinet. What the fuck kind of hotel has a medicine cabinet? Like
That's
that's
true.
not a
That's true.
thing.
No. It would be so easy to forget all your stuff if you had a slide away medicine cabinet, and this poor hotel would have to mail out so much expensive makeup to people. One thing in this film I did like, I think it was my favorite shot of the entire movie, is the scene when Tim Roth is leaning out of this really small window. It's just a really cool set that they built. I think it's a really neat little cross section of a 2-story building. He's contorted himself in a very interesting way. But then you quickly notice he's on like the 8th floor, so it's not like he's going to escape. I thought it was funny where he's trying to talk to the person above him. Excuse me, I found myself in a little bit of a predicament. Could you please call the police? And the guy just vomits on him in the face and possibly in his mouth and nose because he's facing directly into the vomit. So, there's few things that sound worse than that in life. And that would certainly make me want to quit a minimum wage job.
This story also has a disappointing ending where it ends with him just running out of the room, which, fine, sure, that makes sense, but also, well, why didn't he just do that before? And why doesn't he do that every time?
Yeah, they get all in like that.
Well, because the guy had the gun in the beginning.
But he just leaves. It's an anticlimactic ending.
You're right.
I don't think I wanted to see him have sex with the wife while the husband watched. Like, I don't know what would have been a better ending, but I think him just deciding to up and leave is a bad ending.
It was anticlimactic, to be sure.
Well, the only thing you do get is Jessica Biel, who's stunning, but also there's a seed planted for her to come back later, but
Right.
also that's kind of a dud too.
Yeah. But before we get to that last one where she comes back, let's go to the 3rd chapter, which is called The Misbehaviors. This is written and directed by Robert Rodriguez, and I'll just say right out of the gate, far and away, this is my favorite segment of the movie.
There's a big jump in quality, you're right.
Yeah, like the kids that are in this part are adorable and they're really funny. A lot of it is just talking about stinky feet, which feels out of place with a lot of the sex and violence in the first 2 segments, but there's a lot more happening in this part of the movie.
And there's a payoff to the stinky feet.
Yes, ultimately it's not each other's feet that they're smelling, but the dead woman inside the bed.
Yeah, it's such an interesting film to watch from Robert Rodriguez because he has not done Spy Kids. And this is probably where he said, oh, I love working with kids. Like, this is great. Those 2 kids are fantastic.
But it's cool to see Antonio Banderas and him, they're frequent collaborators. So that was super cool. This one is like, it's so good. I thought a little bit like maybe this one should have been first or something. I don't know, but it's really good. And the whole vibe is different. You can really tell that like each segment was owned by their creator, like what didn't appear to be like anyone had any oversight over the entire thing. And it says executive produced by Tarantino, but I don't know. I guess he was pretty hands off because like it shouldn't be that jarring from room to room where you can see that like, all right, this guy is operating on a completely different level. And it's really no surprise that he and Tarantino are the 2 names that everyone who talks about this movie says Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino, and 2 other people.
Right. There is a little bit of connective tissue with this one and the one that came before, where the daughter calls up and asks about a needle, and it's Richie Aprile, the husband from the second one. So when that happens in that part of the movie, you don't hear the other side of the conversation, and now you do. So there is that little tiny bit of connective tissue, which doesn't really matter. You're not desperately wondering what was on the other side of that call, and then you find out. But she's calling and asking about the hypodermic needle, which she finds in the drawer, and she pokes herself. The little girl pokes herself with a hypodermic needle, and as a father, I'm watching that and I'm thinking, okay, now this is not zany antics with kids left alone in a hotel room. This is now a medical emergency. And
Right.
obviously, that's not where this movie is going. I didn't expect it to go in that direction, but I was definitely thinking that everything stops now. You need to take that kid immediately to an emergency room and
Right.
get her tested. And later, Ted gets stabbed with a hypodermic needle, and he kind of makes a passing comment of, I've been infected by God knows what. And, he doesn't really seem too perturbed by it, but no, that's very scary.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree. To be fair, your chances of acquiring HIV are like 0.4% if there's blood in there. However, your chances of getting hepatitis C is about 20% if you're stabbed with a needle. I mean, I still wouldn't roll the dice with either of those, and you immediately go to the emergency room. Those statistics, I feel like, are on a slide I saw 15 years ago that could be outdated. Let's just say she's statistically probably okay.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
The other thing about this that I thought was really, really funny is the whole premise is that the husband and wife are going out for New Year's Eve and they're ditching the kids. And when they come back, the wife is completely, totally passed out, but she has a death grip on the bottle of booze.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
I thought that was hilarious because, of course, if you're that passed out, you're not holding on to a bottle. That was just a small touch that I thought was really, really funny. The ending of this one is not the best. It's definitely better than the ending of the first two, where it's the worst possible time for them to come back. There's a dead body. Ted's got the leg. The room's on fire. They're watching the sexy TV channel. And he just says, did they misbehave? Because that was the whole thing. Don't misbehave. It's not hilarious. It's a little bit of a badum-tsh kind of a thing. It was so much better than the first two endings that I loved it, even though it's not really that lovable.
I have to disagree with you. I thought that ending was hysterical. I laughed out loud because he didn't say, were they misbehaving? Antonio Banderas said, and I apologize, Mr. Banderas, I'm going to try to do it the way you said it so brilliantly. He was just like, were they misbehaving? There's fire and needles, and he just cares. Did these kids misbehave? Did they go to bed before midnight on New Year's Eve? That's his number one priority. I just thought the way he delivered it with the room on fire, I laughed out loud. I loved it.
I took it as like he knew there was nothing he could do to keep them from misbehaving. He was like, so did they misbehave? Clearly they did. Like it was almost like a wink to them. Like he's not mad because he knows his kids, and so Ted's kind of off the hook. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I also thought it was kind of crazy that he gave him the money first.
That's true.
He should have given the money after. That bothered me.
Yeah, I always pay babysitters after.
Right. I didn't notice this until the end credits, but that was Selma Hayek on the TV.
Yes.
And I saw this after I watched the movie also. The cartoon they put on a couple times was an original for this movie.
Oh,
Because I
really?
wondered what that was. Yeah, it was a cat shot a mouse with a gun that had a cork in it. And I remember even saying, I was like, what cartoon is that? And because it
Interesting.
looked like Jerry, but the cat didn't look like Tom. And I didn't pay too much attention, but afterwards, when I kind of was looking up little things about the movie, I saw that was an original. So this episode's packed. You know, you got the fire, you got the effects, you got original cartoons, you got Salma Hayek, you got Banderas. Like it was stacked, and congrats to a lengthy career that was born out of this.
Right. So then Ted leaves this room and doesn't call the police because of the dead body. He calls his boss. His boss is played by Kathy Griffin, who is funny, but she's not funny in this movie. The funny conversation is what he has with Marissa Tomei, where she is really fucking high and she's just asking him about his night. And I love this part. That was really funny.
Hmm.
I'm such a nerd, but I kept wondering what is that game they're playing, and I did have to look it up. Apparently, it's Rambo 3 on the Genesis. But this is the kind of thing I think is a real cool thing. There's two women playing video games. Video games are usually either a male thing, or if a woman's playing it, then she's a gamer and it's a whole thing. They don't make any reference to it at all. And I just like the fact that it's a girls' night out and they're just playing on Genesis. It's a Miramax film, so this reminded me a lot of the scene in Swingers when there's just a bunch of guys, but that's a little more stereotypical that those guys were playing Sega Genesis. I really like that these women are playing, not just the two women playing, all four women are watching this screen. So
Yeah, that was funny.
that was a small part for me that I really liked in this. I thought it was a part of the small segment. Bravo to whoever directed this little intersegment. Who I don't know who we give credit to that.
I'm not sure if this counts as the fourth segment, but the fourth segment is Penthouse, The Man from Hollywood. This one is written and directed by Quentin Tarantino and stars Quentin Tarantino as a famous Hollywood big shot, which I immediately rolled my eyes at. I was like, of course, Tarantino casts himself as the star. I'm not the biggest Tarantino fan in general. And I think it's towards the beginning, maybe not the very beginning, but when Ted arrives in the penthouse, there's a oneer, which is kind of a Tarantino thing. And I'm definitely biased because we just watched Magnolia and Paul Thomas Anderson does a really impressive oneer in that movie. And then we were talking about the oneer in Boogie Nights and the one in Goodfellas.
What's a oneer again, Al?
A oneer is a one long shot, one long take. And those other ones that I just mentioned, those require precision and choreography with all of the actors and the lighting and the director of photography and the extras, all of it. And in this part of Four Rooms, it's hard for the actors who have to memorize their lines and deliver their lines perfectly. That's not nothing. But for the cameraman, it's just walking into the room, spinning around once or twice. It's not that impressive.
To be honest, I didn't even notice it was a oneer, and you really notice it in those PTA films.
I agree with you that there was an attempt at a cool oneer that didn't happen. But in general, it doesn't knock off the third story as the best, but it is way better than the other two, like obviously. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's some fun stuff in here. I saw another factoid that because Bruce Willis did the movie for free, that's against the rules of the actors union.
SAG.
He's not credited. I was surprised to see him at first.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, because he's not credited in the beginning.
Yeah, and it was cool seeing Bruce Willis, but I just got so bored by Tarantino's endless monologuing and pontificating about nothing. He's just going on and on about the Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which also he doesn't get the episode title right. He keeps calling it The Man from Rio, and apparently the episode is called something else, which seems un-Tarantino-like to get a detail like that wrong. But he also is just rambling for so long before you even get to that, and that's kind of my thing with Tarantino. That's why I'm not a big Tarantino fan, just because so much of it is just not just dialogue. Like, I like dialogue heavy movies and scenes, but it's just him rambling and just kind of showing off. I always just find him pretentious, like he's showing off his knowledge, and I don't care. So much of this was that. Did that bother you, Jason?
Yeah, he's exhausting. And it's
Yeah.
weird. I was annoyed that two of the four movies that I have picked, involve Tarantino, because I was like, I'm not a Tarantino guy like that. Like I respect him. I like Pulp Fiction. I like Reservoir Dogs. I haven't even seen Hateful Eight. Like I don't run and go see whatever he does.
Same.
I do want to see Hateful Eight. I keep saying I'm going to see it.
There's a difference between liking Tarantino's films and being like a Tarantino bro.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a Tarantino bro, yeah, at all. And it was funny because I know you can see this because you're a Norm Macdonald fan like I am.
Yes.
And It's like he's doing Norm's impression of him. It was awesome. Like I was like, that was probably the scene that gave birth to Norm's impression of him because
Yeah.
it's like he's doing that thing. It was great.
Yes. And the other Norm MacDonald reference that I'm going to make, this entire segment, however long it is, 20-ish minutes, it's all set up for one punchline, which
Yes.
makes me think of Norm MacDonald's moth joke or
Uh-huh.
Astronaut Jones, which is one of my all-time favorite
Hmm.
Saturday Night Live skits that nobody knows. It's not super famous, but it's Tracy Morgan, and it's
Yeah.
all set up for one punchline.
What's the punchline you're talking about here?
The punchline is that they're going on and on and on about if he can flick the lighter on 10 times, and if he doesn't, he's going to lose his pinky. And standard Hollywood rules are that he would do it 9 times, really
Yeah.
ratchet up the tension, and then it's, does he do it, does he not on the 10th? But he misses on the very first attempt,
That was awesome.
and Ted immediately chops off his pinky. And that is the punchline. That's where the segment ends. That's where the movie ends. And of the four stories, this is the best ending by a long shot. I thought that was really, really funny.
Yeah.
I think I laughed out loud. I love that. I think the reason Norm MacDonald's moth joke and Astronaut Jones work better, in my opinion, is that they're shorter. It's like a 2.5 minute SNL skit. Maybe Norm MacDonald's joke is 5, 6 minutes, which is long, but this is 20 minutes of setup for the one punchline. That's still too long, but it is also a funny punchline.
Same as you, Al. I laughed hysterical. I laughed out loud. The second short film in a row, I laughed out loud at the very end of the segment.
When we mentioned the bloody clothing earlier, it reminded me that apparently, and you guys probably saw this too, that there was supposed to be a fifth room.
Yes.
Richard Linkletter was supposed to do the fifth one, but then he didn't. So I wonder if maybe they cut out some things that were going to connect to that, or, and also here's the second thing, Roth was a last minute replacement, and that all the directors wrote their stories with Steve Buscemi in mind, who was supposed to be the bellboy. Now
Oh.
that would be a completely different movie.
That's interesting because when I read that, I did think they're very different actors, but I was thinking, Buscemi and Tim Roth, both kind of 90s in that indie world. They were in all those Miramax films.
Yeah. I wouldn't call myself a Tim Roth fan. I mean, I don't hate him, but I definitely like Steve Buscemi more. I feel like he would have brought more to it.
I don't know what he was trying to channel, but it was I wasn't super into it. There's moments where he's really kind of cool. Like one of the times where he's on the phone, he sounds really cool. But the screaming, this like screeching thing that he would do, this panicky, it started to get on my nerves. But
Yeah.
all in all, he was one of my least favorite things about the movie. And I did like the last segment, the counting of the money. There's this last shot where there's like an aerial view of the situation, and the hatchet is up in the air. It looks like they're posing for a photo, and they slowly pan down, and then it's the countdown. Then it's like flick, chop, snatch, turn, walk. It's great. It's a great little sequence. That was a really cool way to end the movie. I just wish that like that last bit of money could have like saved the day or something. Like you're rooting for him, but not really. You're kind of just like observing him. I just wanted more out of the lead who's supposed to be tying all these things together.
Yeah, he's the thread, but you don't care about him.
Right, right.
Right.
I had mentioned years ago I saw this segment, and I remember vaguely when he walks in and he sees what's her name from the other Jessica.
Oh, Angela, Jennifer Beals.
Yeah, he walks in and he sees Jennifer Beals and he reacts and recoils. And I remember saying like, "Oh, cool, she was in another room. This is probably one of those movies where they all like interconnect and blah blah blah." And that, so I was kind of teed up for that, and it never happened. So it was like, I don't know, it was just kind of weird even seeing her in there.
Yeah, there's no payoff. The only thing is, oh, it's her again. We remember her.
Yeah, I wish there was more of that. That could have been really cool.
Yeah. But Jason, let me ask you what you think about Four Rooms as a whole. Do you think the movie stands the test of time?
I don't think it's a great movie. I think that there's two really good segments and two stinkers, and Tim Roth is super annoying. However, I think because it's an anthology, that to a degree it does stand the test of time because like it's kind of campy and it doesn't take itself too seriously. If you're the type of person who puts on content in your house because of a theme, whether that's like we'll even watch Thanksgiving episodes of The Simpsons in my house, like
Nice.
whatever the holiday is, it's like, oh, it's 4th of July, put on that 4th of July episode of Married with Children. Like if you're just in it for the date, then it's cool. And I'm gonna say it partially stands the test of time because people's attention span are so terrible now that like it's kind of like binging a show or like having like a movie marathon that isn't 8 hours long. You know what I mean? Like it's short, it's compact. Even the bad parts don't linger too long. I'm gonna say it's as good today as it was then, and it's never been great. So it's like I was even wondering how we were gonna rate it because it was such a stinker to begin with. It's not like, is this as good as we remember? I'm gonna say it's as bad as we remember, but it's interesting to see the beginning stages of Robert Rodriguez and to look back at some of that stuff, but it's as good as they said it was.
So is that a yes?
Sure. I'm gonna say yes. Weirdly, yes. Yes.
That's a half-hearted yes. That's a yes with a shrug.
Well, what is it? Short answer, yes with an if. Long answer, no with a but.
I love that. All right, James, what do you got? Does the movie stand the test of time?
I will say I highly recommend you go and watch the Robert Rodriguez sequence and the Quentin Tarantino sequence. A little less than the Robert Rodriguez, but Misbehavin' it's so good overall. Because I don't want you to you have to go through two bad films. No, this anthology does not stand the test of time. It's really up there, the Robert Rodriguez sequence, but it's not enough to make someone watch, two other bad ones. So for me, it does not stand the test of time. What do you think, Al?
I did not care for this movie. The first two segments are, I think, really, really bad. The third one's entertaining, and the fourth one, I laughed at the end and hated everything else. So, I mean, grand sum total, we're talking about 22 minutes of content that I liked in this whole thing. I didn't care for a large majority of it. And I kind of get your point, Jason, about, what about it doesn't stand the test of time. And I think you could make the argument that it's the first two segments because don't forget, Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino did another kind of anthology thing years later. They did Grindhouse, where there was only two movies and they were a lot longer, and that did a hell of a lot better than Four Rooms, I think. I don't know that it was a blockbuster hit. And honestly, I remember seeing that in the theater and liking the Robert Rodriguez one way more than I liked the Quentin Tarantino one. Again, I'm not a huge Tarantino fan, but the idea of taking different filmmakers and letting them play in one big sandbox and having there be some connective tissue, but not a lot. That's a cool idea. Like, I like that in principle, but I don't like Four Rooms. Honestly, I'm going to forget all of this. Like, I'm not going to remember any of this shit in a week or two. Like, if we made a bet where in a couple years, I had to tell you just a vague description of the four parts of this movie, or I'd lose my pinky, I'm walking out of that room with 9 fingers. Like, there's no way I'm going to remember any of this shit. And I'm fine with that. No, I do not think this movie stands the test of time. I'm still really glad that we got to hang out, Jason. Like, this is really cool. This conversation stands a test of time.
Of course. We all led with it being a stinker. I'm stretching the definition of standing the test of time. It's not a great movie at all.
That's fine. But Jason, thank you so much for coming back on the show. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's always a pleasure. And I just want to say I'm one away now from five timers. I have an idea already.
Oh, what is it?
I've been watching Family Ties a lot recently. And
Okay.
remember Nick, the boyfriend on that
Yeah,
show?
yeah,
He was
Mallory's
Mallory's boyfriend.
boyfriend.
Do you remember that movie he was in?
No, he was in a movie.
Yes, he was in a movie. It's a weird romantic comedy with a lot of weird special effects. It's called My Demon Lover.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to do that movie because it's one of those movies that I rented all the time for some reason. This is like before Blockbuster, so like my little corner video place always had it. It's a really bizarre, weird movie, and I think it was supposed to launch him because he was sort of like the Fonzie on that show. He started to kind of steal the show.
Oh yeah, he was really
I think they
funny.
tried to make him into a movie star. That was it, and it didn't work. But yeah, it's a trip.
I mean, you've got me with the title. That sounds amazing. Look, nobody else called dibs on My Demon Lover.
Yeah, all right, cool.
You've got it. Let's do that next year. Let's do that sometime in
Yeah,
2025.
I'll be a five timer. Very excited.
I'll have to text you for your hoodie size, I guess. Thank you again for joining us, Jason. That's going to do it for us this year. We will come back next week in 2025 to talk about Hexed. James, have you ever seen the movie Hexed?
No, I've never heard of this film.
Okay, this is a movie that I was obsessed with as a teenage boy. I've been wanting to do this one for a while. So I hope you'll join us for that episode. In the meantime, we love hearing from you guys. We are at Test of Time Pod, Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. Hey, if you made a New Year's resolution to write reviews for podcasts, you can do that. Write us something nice on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on a future episode. And we'll see you next year, everybody.
We'll see you then.